Good evening and welcome to Fridays Live with me, Raj Nayak. My guest this evening is an old colleague and a dear friend. His career has spanned over three decades, a successful media executive, now a creative entrepreneur, and also a part-time farmer. He needs no introduction. He's been at the forefront of the television revolution in this country. And way back in 2000, he gave us shows like Kaun Banega Crorepati. He's the man behind it. And recently, you watched Scam on Sony Live. So he needs no introduction. The chief executive of Applause Entertainment, Samir Nair. Welcome, Samir.
Hello, Raj. How are you? Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on Friday's Live.
That's nice. I mean, would you have imagined that 20 years down the line, you would be sitting and answering questions on a Friday evening?
And answering questions to you. And I can see that in the last year, you've become a wonderful talk show host. And you've been hosting this show, and it's been going really well. I was waiting to get my invite, so I am really glad to have got it now.
Yeah, thanks, Samir. Thanks for doing this. This show is, like I mentioned to you earlier also, this show is all about getting to know you. And a lot of people know you, they know about you, or they've read about you, but they really, really don't know you. And through this show, we are just trying to get to know you better. And I'm going to start, and that's what I do with everybody. I start right from the beginning. But before I do that, I want to ask you, part-time farmer, where did this come from?
Well, actually, you were the one who helped me coin it. But honestly, I have a small piece of farmland in Karjat. And actually, I'm not the farmer, really. My sister is. She is a genuine green thumb in our family. And but we do spend a lot of time there. And I genuinely enjoy the whole process of farming and, animals and growing stuff and all the time and effort it takes to do. So it's like a really sort of, it's a very calming experience. It's a experience that teaches you a lot of patience. Things take time to grow. When you plant a seed and then it, sort of takes its own time and things go wrong. And it's wonderful. I quite enjoy nature. I enjoy being with nature. So yeah, it's just a thing. I mean, I'm not a farmer in that sense, but I do enjoy, poking my, spending my time doing stuff like that.
No, that's nice. I mean, but in your family, I mean, did you do farming? I mean, your parents or anybody, was it in the family somewhere?
I'm sure, and as forefathers go, that must have been. But I think in more recent generations, probably not. But we've always gone back to, when you go back to, your hometown and you meet relatives and other people in the family who are still doing that. You do come in contact with that. But no, honestly, I'm a city-bred boy. I've always grown up in Bombay, lived in Bombay. So this is the first time for me to be, so closely in touch with farming, per se. Farming and cows and goats and chickens and stuff like that.
You mentioned your hometown. Where are you from, Samir?
I am from Bombay, but my father was from Kerala, and my mother is from Andhra originally, but born and brought up in Ajmer in Rajasthan. And they met in Bombay. So I am, for all practical purposes, from Bombay.
So you were born in Bombay.
Yep.
And what was your dad doing?
My dad used to work in Films Division. So he was, the general manager of administration at Films Division. My mother is a teacher. She used to teach in a school called KJ Khilnani High School. We grew up in Bandra. I mean, I spent most of my childhood in Bandra. So I grew up there, convent educated, went to St. Teresa's High School. My sister went to the sister school, Durello Convent. Grew up, went to Wilson, then to Xavier's, like pretty much Bandra boy. Lived around Almeida Park and, did all the things, played hockey, played cricket, played kho-kho. I mean, everything.
Yeah, I can visualize the Bandra boy. And how many siblings are you? You and your sister?
Me and my sister, yes. Just the two of us.
Just the two of you. And you mentioned your father was in the films division. So somewhere I can see the connect coming in you. And your mother was a teacher. And that's probably where all your reading habits come from. I mean, just quickly, what's the influence your parents had on you?
Well, I guess a lot because, we were always a very close-knit family and, like sort of just the four of us. lots of relatives coming in and out, but primarily as a family unit, we were just the four of us. Um, while my father was the one who worked in film division, he was also a very active theater person and has acted in a number of Malayalam films and series and stuff like that. But so that was just something that was going on. It was not something that genuinely sort of had an influence on me. My mother, while being the academic, was not really the big reader. That was my father. He's the one who used to read all the books. I got that habit from there. What my mother and me did, of course, was that apart from just the bringing up, we used to spend a lot of time watching movies together. So, like I think from the early 70s, my mother and me have seen every possible Hindi movie that is released in Bombay. Definitely the two of us, maybe the rest of the family. So yeah, I mean, they're like very. I mean, when you say what kind of influences is like, I always tell people that from my mother, I've learned the value of hard work. She's a big believer in hard work. I mean, being a karma yogi in that sense. And from my father, he was actually more of a happy-go-lucky man, and less stressed out about uh, you know achievement. But he did have a theory that if you are doing something, you might as well try to be the best at it. So I think that kind of combination, at least beyond that, no, wonderful parents, very little pressure, no real, no sort of strain or stress to, definitely not tiger mom or tiger dad. So, very nice, very happy.
So where do you live now? I mean, you still live in Bandra? Or?
I moved around a bit. So we were in Bandra till about 1982. Then my parents went to Chennai, and then I followed them to Chennai. I did my hotel management in Chennai. Then we were there for a couple of years. I came back to Bombay. Then I went back to Chennai. Then we came back to Bombay. Now I'm back in Bandra. So I've been in Bandra now for the last, I think, 15 years.
And what's the Bandra then and the Bandra today? If you had to say what's the major difference?
Well, apart from the fact that they're digging up all the roads to lay the new cables and pipes, I think Bandra has stayed frozen in time. So there are a few new buildings here and there. So sometimes when you're passing by my old school and sort of lose sense of direction, and then you realize that where that little Kirana store was is now a building. But in many ways, Bandra has sort of stayed in the same sort of space. Obviously, a little more crowded, but a lot of the by lanes and the smaller roads in Salset Colony and places like that are really, really old Bandra. And during Christmas time, in fact, if you go walking around in Bandra, it's quite a pretty, it's still the queen of the suburbs. So very nice.
I agree. In fact, we had my brother-in-law and his wife from the US, and we did a walking trip in Bandra during Christmas, and it's really pretty. And people who haven't done it must do it. I want to ask you, I mean, you did your hotel management, that's what you said. And how did that happen? I mean, and did you then work in a hotel or something? I mean, did you pursue that? Or?
Well, actually, hotel management itself happened in a bit of a, not in a really planned way. I was actually studying from my childhood. I always wanted to be a scientist. And the hope was that I'd become some sort of an astrophysicist. That's what I wanted to do. And so I was, studying towards that. I finished my 12th from Wilson, and I was trying to get into IIT, which I couldn't. Then I joined Xavier's to do BSc in physics, and then continue to apply for IIT. But I think in that period, sort of something changed, and I sort of moved away from this whole science and this scientific approach to life. And I guess I grew up. I was 18 years old at the time. I went from 5 foot to 6 foot. I got contact lenses. I got a girlfriend. Things like that. I started playing TT, and I play very good TT ever since. So I think something changed in my life. So finally, what happened was that I didn't want to complete my BSc, and my parents, obviously, my mother especially, was quite horrified. So I had to study. So when I went to Chennai, the plan became that you got to do something. So I decided to give the hotel management entrance exam, which was the first year of this joint entrance exam, and I did quite well. I stood all India number 2, and then I got admission. I joined Chennai, and I started studying there. So I finished the course, but I never really joined the hotels.
Yeah, and then what did you do? I mean, you started your career. I mean, what did you start? How did you start your working career?
I suppose many things. In the 80s, before I got into hotel management, the big desire was to get into advertising. My brother-in-law, at the time, used to work in Trikaya, and then from there he went to Lintas. So that's my sort of experience of a young working person whom you look up to. So the big thing was that we are creative people. We ought to be in advertising. Films, TV were very far away from my head. It was really advertising. So after I did hotel management, my first port of call was, of course, to try and get into advertising, but I couldn't make it because I was obviously wrongly educated. I didn't join the hotel. I'd gone to the Leela for a job, but then I didn't wait long enough for the interview, so I left, and so that didn't happen. So then I spent some time. I spent the first 3 or 4 months doing something on my own. So I used to run a catering service on my own in Bombay with a couple of friends, where we used to make sort of do gourmet dinners. Really real precursor to the ultra premium dining experience. And then after they left, I continued to do that for some time on my own. I used to make chicken rolls and burgers and all that kind of stuff. But that was really not something that it wasn't going to go anywhere. So that's when I joined the Yellow Pages. I got an opportunity to go and join the Yellow Pages in Bombay. It had just launched. This was the UDI Yellow Pages, not the Tata Yellow Pages. And I mean, then I became a salesman essentially. So my first job in the media business was to be a salesman. And we used to do door-to-door sales in Bombay City, trying to go to people and get them to list themselves in the Yellow Pages directory. It was great. Anil Kapoor, that is Billy Kapoor, who later became the boss of. He was my first boss technically. He was the CEO of UDI Yellow Pages. So, and Ambi Parmeshwaran, he was the other senior person in the company at the time.
Wow, I mean, I did not know that part of it, and I knew that you worked in Yellow Pages. But what I didn't know about you, Samir, and that's the beauty, having known you for 2 decades, I didn't know you were such a great cook.
Well, I'm not such a great cook, but I enjoy food. I did learn how to cook, obviously, because we went through the course and did that. So I enjoy cooking, but honestly, I must admit that over the years, I'm not really, I'm not practiced. I don't do it often enough, but I do enjoy. I enjoy food, so I don't mind eating as much of it as can be made.
So, do you believe in destiny? The reason I ask you this is you said you went to Leela for an interview and you didn't wait long enough, but that didn't happen. Had it happened, do you think your life's journey would have been something different?
I think so. I did hotel management to essentially be in the hotel management business. I have a lot of friends from my college there. They are still in touch with us. We are all still very good friends. I am one of the few who didn't get into the business. When I went to the Leela for that job, actually, I was well recommended, and I think at some level we knew the Nayars. So it was supposed to be a sort of an open and shut kind of thing. If it hadn't been for my sort of childish impatience and petulance, I should have waited there and I would have got the job, and I'm sure I would have done a good job at it because I was qualified for it, and I would have been a management trainee, and life would have gone on from there. And everyone whom I knew at that time from my college was doing exactly the same thing, so there was no reason that I would want to do anything different. So which is why later in life, when we were in Star, and the Masterpiece office was right next to the Leela, and the Leela became our watering hole. I've always had the fondest sort of, I have been always very fond of the Leela because I almost worked there, and that would have been my career then.
And reminding me of the watering hole at Star, there are great stories. I'm sure you will recall many of them. Especially when we used to wait for going to the airport to take the late night flights to Hong Kong.
Exactly, and then that used to be the pit stop before you go there. So, yeah.
So tell me about you worked for Yellow Pages, and what do you do after that?
So I finished with the Yellow Pages, and I was there for 2 years. I did lots of things in Yellow Pages. I obviously did first the street sales in Bombay. Then I got promoted, and I was managing what was called national accounts, which is the bigger, like companies like Levers and UB Group and things like that. Then there was a little change in management. I even got transferred for a bit to Gujarat. So I spent about 6 or 8 months managing the Gujarat market. So I used to go to Anand and Rajkot and Ahmedabad and Baroda and, same thing, and continuing the same thing. It was around that time that I wanted to go to Chennai because there was this plan of me getting married. I was very young. I got married for my first marriage. I got married at the age 25. So I wanted to get to Chennai at that time, and I also wanted to get into advertising, and I wasn't being able to make a break into advertising in Bombay. So I had applied for a job to this company in Chennai called Goldwire. I didn't know very much about it, but they just gave me a call and said that, okay, you can, come and join us. So I went and met this person, Aubrey Sequeira, who actually asked me whether I knew anything about programming. And at the time, I thought he meant computer programming, of which I knew nothing about. But I said, yeah, sure, of course I do. So I got the job. And only when I joined the company, I realized he was referring to television programming. But in any case, I had joined and then I was in there, and I sort of, inherited the films department. And at that time, what Goldwire used to do was do a lot of programming on Doordarshan. So they used to be the lead agency for MRF, and we used to do a lot of stuff on Doordarshan for MRF. So I sort of got into that. So, like for example, we did the Filmfare Awards in South India and in Bombay. We used to do, there used to be an MTV countdown show we did on Doordarshan. We did Street Hawk, Knight Rider, Glow Friends, My Little Pony, all sorts of crazy things. I did the Grammy Award. We used to buy the rights and then edit it and put it on Doordarshan. So this I'm talking about 89, 90, 91, that period. And apart from that, doing advertising commercials for MRF, doing corporate films for MRF. So, it was a pretty fantastic. I learned everything that I know about this business. Everything that I've learned creatively, I've learned from Aubrey Sequeira. I cut my teeth there. I became a producer, a director, an account executive, a film executive. I learned how to write. I learned how to, sort of do this stuff. And I also found my sort of, in a sense, I found my vocation. So it took me some time to get there, but I did eventually.
And post Goldwire, what did you do?
So then I was in Goldwire for I think about 3.5 years. Then there was, that sort of, the general impatience of moving around and moving on. So I turned independent. I started an ad film company, as people like me would do at the time, because that's the thing to do. So I did quite a lot of work in Chennai at that time. So I did a couple of commercials for Fun School and for Velvet Shampoo, and then I shot a Sri Perumbudur motor races with a Belgian crew. So I did that kind of different work. It was around that time that I got a call from a friend of mine, our friend, actually, you know her as well, Sunita Rajan. So Sunita Rajan used to be our neighbor in Bandra when I was growing up. So she is actually my sister's classmate in that sense. So I was always the kid brother and this was his elder sister. So now many years later, she called me to say that she was working in BBC in Hong Kong and that she was moving to Star TV, which is this new network that's going to come to India. And, that you should definitely try and, join, and this might be the future and all of that. So I applied I sent her a couple of resumes to Star TV. And I was hopeful at that time of getting a job in Star Sports as a promo producer. So I thought if I could land that would be perfect, because I come from MRF, Goldwire. I have a lot of sports background because we used to do a lot of sports programming for MRF, and I've cut lots of sports commercials. So, it's like my strong suit. But I never got any reply from Star Sports. I never got a reply from Star Plus. Instead, I got a reply from Star Movies, from Tony Watts, who said that, I got a fax back saying that, would you like to be a researcher writer for Star Movies? So I, of course, agreed to come to Bombay and meet him. And then I told him that, listen, I'm a pretty qualified guy. So researcher writer seems a bit sad. So we settled on producer director. So I joined Star Movies in 94 August as producer director, Star Movies.
Yeah, good old days. I fond memories. When you said Star Sport, Tony Watts. Where's Tony Watts now? Are you in touch with him?
Yes, I am in touch with him. Not as much as I'd like to be, but yes, I am in touch with him. And in fact, our friend Sumo posted a picture of all of us at his farewell at Star, which we had done a couple of years back. So the line that Sumo has written was that this is the dream team that revolutionized TV in India and all that. So Tony Watts' comment on that is that don't forget the Goras who hired you all in the first place.
True. All the people at that time. Some of them are all my Facebook friends, but some are not. Great. And so that was Star TV. I remember, even though we didn't have that much of interaction at that time, I was based in Delhi, you are based in Mumbai. And then tell me your journey within Star. I know, but I think our viewers would like to know your journey within Star.
Well, actually, I joined Star Movies to produce really what is called interstitial programming. So, which is, we used to do a lot of interviews with actors and directors and producers of Hindi movies, of course, primarily, and then later even some South Indian films. And used to make them into 10 or 15-minute programs and play them on Star Movies in between the movies as breaks. So we did a lot. I mean, and we used to do all of this programming in English language. So I had a pretty exciting time because we did numerous. I mean, I got to know the entire industry at that period. So later in life, when I came in contact with them again, most people I already know because I have mostly gone on some of their film shoots and shot with them and done interviews with them. So like I've shot with Shah Rukh and Amit ji and I mean everybody, Anil Kapoor and Madhuri Dixit, and so many people, and different movies, all kinds of crazy movies and stuff. Then we produced a lot of shows. So we used to do a show with UTV at that time called Bol Bollywood. We did a show from Chennai called Deccan Dream. We did something called This Week that year. So there was a lot of that stuff. And we also used to do premieres of movies, of Hindi movies. We used to do a big promotion around it for, around the movie on Star Movies and create a lot of promos and competitions and all of that. So I've done Barsat, which launched Bobby and Twinkle. We've done Rityu Datta, which was Amit ji's comeback movie in '97. So yeah, I mean, it was all that kind of frantic activity for about 3.5, 4 years till Mr. Basu joined, right? And I think Mr. Basu arrived in October '96. That then sort of changed the dynamic in Star and took it in a different direction. But up until then, it was quite a exciting time. We produced a lot of content around the movie industry, and yeah, it was fun.
So when did your switch happen to Star Plus? I mean, that was your next progression, right? When you
Yeah,
took over as content head for Star Plus.
I suppose that progression took like 2-3 years because that was what we call, the Mr. Basu interim. So after he arrived, then it sort of, we had to rearrange our lives. I think you as well. And then he arrived, and he brought a whole team from Doordarshan. So I was sort of Star Movies went, into that system, and I used to report to Mrs. Bhalla. And so the first 6-8 months was really treading water and trying to, find my feet in this new world. Then Mr. Basu, agreed to commission a show which we did produced called the Bhaskar Ghosh Show on Star Movies. So that was a pretty good thing to do. And then gradually I took a couple of steps. The first thing I did was I took over promos and presentation for Star Plus. So that was the first step. Then from there, I took over acquisitions of Hindi movies for Star Plus. And then finally by '99, when there was a big change occurring, and then all of a sudden, Mr. Basu and his team, sort of left the company. That's when Peter became CEO and I became head of programming of Star Plus. So I mean, from '96 to '99, it took that 3 years of sort of navigating my way through this, through this whole Star dynamic and the new management and old management and Hong Kong and India and Delhi and all of that.
And what are your fondest memories of those days?
Well, it is. I mean, I have one was that we used to always have this thing that before Mr. Basu came, or after Mr. Basu came, we used to often say that hum अंग्रेजों के ज़माने के manager हैं. So we were the ones that were there while we were still run by the Goras in Hong Kong. Then after Mr. Basu came, he truly sort of Indianized the company, so it became a company that was run out of India, and it always stayed after that like that. And I mean, there are amazing memories. One is, of course, all the work that I've done. Like I've had an opportunity to interview A.R. Rahman, Prabhu Deva, Amitabh Bachchan. So they were like great fun times to do all these crazy things. The colleagues at the time, the people you used to work with, there was Peter was the first person that I met when I came to Star. And in fact, one of the first pieces of advice he gave me at that time was because, we used to never have any clear reporting, and it was all pretty much Wild West kind of, operation. So he told me that, so you spend first and account later. So if you get it right, then there's never going to be a problem. And if you get it wrong, then, well, it takes 3 strikes to get fired. So, I mean, those kind of things, really emboldened me to, sort of get out there and get things done. And then gradually, all the different people, the whole Hong Kong gang, there was Tony Watts, there was Steve Askew, there was a whole bunch of people, And then I think I met you, I think later around 98, 99.
Yeah, 99, 98, 99. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, we had some great time too. I mean, we
Yeah.
did a lot of things together, and it was great
Yeah.
fun. Yeah. And then you went on to Peter left, and you went on to also take on as the head of Star TV, right?
Well, actually, Peter left. What happened after that, after Mr. Basu left, is that then we sort of settled down to make Star into this Hindi channel. It started out by being, if you remember, in those days, Star Plus used to be half Hindi and half English,
Yeah, yeah.
because of our 50-50
With
deal with.
Z, yeah, yeah,
So I mean, so for the first 8-9 months of being programming head, that's what that's how we used to run it. And then in 2000 there was a change, and then we bought out Z, and or Z bought us out, either way. And then we were okay to go and become a full Hindi channel. So that's when the big change happened, actually, for us and for Star and for everything, because that's the year we did KBC in July, and Kyunki and Kahani, the two daily soaps from Ekta. And sort of after that, then, Star Plus sort of rocketed, and we went from like number 3 to number 1 overnight,
yeah.
and then pretty
I
much stayed there for the next 7-8 years.
Yeah, I remember, and I quit. I quit in 2001. I mean, if I'm correct, 2001, and you had a great run after that. Why did you leave? At your peak?
Well, honestly, we'd been there now for what, 12, 13 years. It had been a long time, and by that time, around 2006, 2007, 2006, really, it had become a pretty sort of complicated environment in Star, between Hong Kong and India, and there were a lot. I mean, I guess it had become extremely top heavy, especially in Hong Kong, with large numbers of people and teams and interfere. And we were doing well in India. I mean, so we were like, at that time, I think some 600 or 700 GRPs, and all of that was going on. But there was a lot of push, pull, strain, and there was no sort of real plan coming out. I guess in hindsight, the very fact that we left, triggered the change to happen, because we left, then it made everyone sort of take notice that there was obviously something wrong, and which is why such a so much of angst and unhappiness was there. And in a way, that sort of helped out, because in a year after we had left, Hong Kong was pretty much dismantled. Reporting lines changed for India. It became directly to London and New York. This whole regional thing was ended. So I mean, things only improved for Star. But it was just one of those things. I think at some level, again, when you spoke about destiny earlier, is that it was something, I guess, that had to happen, and so when it happened, it happened.
So, Samir, after that, after Star, you set up NDTV.
I met with Pranoy. I had met with John Alone, if you remember, our colleague John Alone. So I had met with John Alone at Steve Askew's wedding, and we got talking there. And he said, why don't we do something? Why don't you come and talk to us? And I said that sure, let's do that. So then I met Pranoy and Narayan and Radhika later, and so then this plan came up that let's try and do something together. That time the market was booming. Everyone was excited. Everyone wanted to get into the entertainment business. All the media companies wanted to. It was a period of great excitement and expansion and all of that. So it was in that context that we signed up with NDTV and decided to launch a GEC called NDTV Imagine. So we spent most of 2007 working on it, and we launched in early 2008. So I think in January 2008 we had launched. A couple of months before that, 9XM had launched. 9X. Peter and Indrani had launched that. And then about 6-8 months later, Colors launched in July.
So it all came.
It all came. I mean, this was that period where new things were happening and stuff was going on and all of that. So I mean, that was a great. I mean, I really enjoyed that. It was a great experience, and we got it all organized. Had a good team, and were able to launch the channel, and then got off to a great start. And then what happened the following year is, I mean, 2-3 things happened. So again, in hindsight, it all makes sense. But at the time, I guess we were just sort of living and dealing with what was happening. So we launched in Jan, and the first IPL happened in April. Then in July, Colors happened, and by September, the world had fallen apart because of the Lehman Brothers crash. So 2008 was quite a freaked out year in that sense. And then, because of that and the recession, then money became tight. So 2009 was a complicated year. And in 10, we did the deal with Turner Group. So NGTV sold its stake to Turner Group and sort of exited the business. And then I continued with the Turner Group for a year more, after which I had left. So, but those 4 years were like, amazing years in my life, because, while I've been in Star and I was in Goldwire and Yellow Pages and all of that, and they were small companies. So in a sense, I've always been with startups, but this was a genuine startup because, it was from ground up and I was responsible for everything, as compared to having a whole bunch of other people to, sort of share that responsibility. So it was good. It was a great learning experience. For me, it ended in a failure, but it was an amazing learning experience. I learned a lot. I understood a lot. I got to know myself better. And I had a great team. Actually, it was a fantastic team. Anyway, most of this stuff is not possible without teams. So, so everything we did in Star, everything we did in Imagine is all, amazing colleagues, amazing friends, amazing partners we work with.
I wouldn't call it a failure. I mean, setbacks are there. I wouldn't ever call it a failure because, I mean, like you said, the environment, a whole lot of things happen at the same time. So then post that, what did you do?
So I took a break then. Actually, after I left Imagine, then I said that, like I should sort of figure out what I should do. So it became again a sort of quite a lucky break in that sense, because I was doing some stuff on my own. So I partnered with who I work with today, Deepak Sehgal. So Deepak Sehgal and me sort of said, oh, let's do some creative stuff. So we set up a studio to make some series in the hope that we could make, sort of premium television series at that time. This is 2012. I started a comedy, a short form comedy business with, two friends of mine, Suresh Menon and Abe Thomas. I joined the AAP. I didn't join the AAP, but I got associated with the AAP at that time. That was a very chancy thing. I happened to be in Delhi. They'd come to meet my wife. Instead, they met me, and I got drawn into making some commercials for the AAP. And in that context, I got to sort of hang out with them and work with them very closely for about a year and a half. So that was another amazing learning experience, because all our life, we are all armchair politicians, and armchair activists. So we talk a lot about this stuff. But when I came in contact with the team of AAP in Bombay and Delhi, I truly realized that, politics and, what you say, Desh ki seva is a lot of hard work. It's not easy stuff. So, but it was amazing because I got to meet a lot of different people, a lot of different motivations, and, how they rally and energize large numbers of people into causes and into getting things done. So that was great. And meeting people like Arvind Kejriwal and Anjali Damania and Mayank Gandhi and people like that, pretty impressive. I mean, I had never met people like that in my life before. So so I was doing all of that, and around that time, I got a call from Shobhaji saying that that Balaji at that time was looking to sort of revamp itself and make a move for the future, and that could I join the advisory board. So I said okay. So I did that, and then from that, one thing led to the other, and I joined Balaji in 2014, July 2014.
Yeah. And so post Balaji is when applause happened, right?
Yeah, I was in Balaji for 3 years. We had a good time. I know Ekta and Shobhaji and Jituji very well. I mean, I've known them since '99. So to that extent, it was like it was like family. Wonderful company, wonderful people, very exciting sort of environment. Plus, Ekta has always wanted to have her own channel. So we decided, that instead of launching a GEC, it would be more appropriate to launch a streaming platform. So that is what all Balaji was all about. And we built that from scratch. And again, hired a team, built a team around that thought. So there was Sunil Nair, Nachiket, many people, Nimisha Pandey, and all of these people. Then we came together and built this team. And so we launched All Balaji, made a few movies, continued doing the core TV business. And but it was a 3-year sort of contract. That was the plan. And I had been thinking about this. So what became applause finally in 2017 was something that I was wanting to do in '99. So in '99, if this sort of change had not happened, and if Mr. Basu and his team had not left, I would have most probably left Star at that time. And I was like really keen on setting up a what I called an entertainment studio, which would work with in an ecosystem of creative people, and and sort of work and create content, make series, make movies, do all kinds of things, and essentially build that studio. It was more modeled on what Spielberg had done in the US called Amblin. So I mean, I've always been desirous of having my own Amblin. But then that never happened in '99 because Mr. Basu and team left. I got promoted, and then life went in a different direction. So finally, in 2017, Applause was exactly that same idea, what I wanted to do before, and so that's what we set out to do. I had a fortunate meeting with Mr. Birla, and he sort of him and me sort of shared the same vision, and he's been an amazing patron and an amazing supporter. So because of him, this is all possible. And we've had a good run. Again, it was starting from scratch. We started from a Regis Business Center, and I called my old confidant and friend Deepak Sehgal, and then we built it from there. A couple of really initial hires. Gwen, of course, has always been with me. Prasoon, Mansi, people like that, and then we built up a team.
Oh, great. So does Applause have plans of making feature films? I mean, full-fledged theatrical movies.
Yes, of course, definitely. I mean, in fact, we just announced our first film. We are doing a biopic on this this extremely gallant character, Major Mohit Sharma, who infiltrated into the Hizbul and then lived with them and then proceeded to kill a whole bunch of terrorists. Lost his life in the bargain, so he died a martyr. But it's an extremely inspirational story. So that is a film that we just announced. We're doing a whole bunch of other films as well. So we've had a good run with the series business of creating this cinematic television. Now, of course, making a lot more movie, getting into the movie business, getting into documentaries, trying to do something very interesting in the animation space. So yeah, I mean, that's the plan. The plan is to build Applause as a content studio that does all kinds of content, not limited by either genre or geography or language. So I mean, it's a sort of an open brief and an open canvas, and yeah, and we work with all kinds. We have this hub and spoke model where we are a real core creative, commercial, and monetization team, and we work with production partners of all kinds. So we work with BBC and Endemol and Bani J and you know Goldie Bell and Nikhil Advani and everybody. So it's very exciting.
And your model with platforms that you work with, whether it's Amazon and all, do you get to keep the IP?
Yeah, we do. Actually, what we do is that since we are investing money into development and then actually into the production of it, so what we are showing platforms is finished tape. So that's a risk we take because obviously then if you go ahead and make a series and then if nobody likes it and nobody wants it, then that's problematic. But I think in that sense we are also sort of fine tuning our approach. We are learning what to do and how to do it better. Plus, there's this whole market is just booming. There are so many platforms and there's so much demand for content and good content that we are in a fortunate space. We had a great last year. We released 11 shows in 2020. One a month almost, and through the pandemic. So that was really good, and it's been a good run. We've learned a lot, obviously, because we have this distinct advantage of being able to work with so many different creative people. So like typically what happens is you work with two or three. I've worked with I think now about 16 or 18 different directors. And they all come with their own sort of understanding of the medium, understanding of storytelling, and there's so much to learn. So I think me and my team are having a wonderful time just soaking it all in as to how different people approach things. We work with different writers, different kinds of technicians, actors, and of course platforms. Each platform has a different worldview to what the market is like. They have different analytics, different understanding. So, and I think this market can only grow. I think this market is going to grow like 10x, 20x in the next 5 years. So yeah, I mean, it's good. It's good fun.
Yeah. So during the lockdown, obviously there was a boom. I mean, there was a consumption of content went up. I mean, have you seen any? What's it been post the lockdown? I mean, has there been a change? Are you seeing any change?
But actually, the main boom in the lockdown was when there was a complete lockdown. There was obviously a real spike in consumption because what's going to happen if you lock up a billion people in their homes? Then the only thing they can look at is the screen on their hand or on the wall. But once this sort of has been easing out, I think a lot of the habits have been formed. They say to form a habit, it takes 21 days. We were locked down for almost 180 days. So that's like a habit 6 times over or more. So in that sense, I think a large number of people have become, sort of introduced to the whole streaming business, to the platforms. Families, older people have been sort of introduced to the platform by their grandchildren or children, and different people have become sort of aware of the kind of content and the kind of ease of viewing that streaming offers as compared to TV, which is if you miss it, it's gone kind of thing. So I think it's been a big deal, and I don't think that's anything has come down now. Hopefully, once the things return to some normalcy, theaters reopen, and people start moving around again. But I think for a large part, the streaming world is here to stay now.
So I agree with you on this. I'm sure content consumption will only go up, and more and more people will start demanding better and better content. But my question to you is, now with this whole controversy on regulation, especially you've seen what happened with Tanda, right? Where do you see this? How do you see this impacting the quality of content or the creative freedom, as one would say?
Well, honestly, I think that when you talk about quality of content, I think the quality of content can only improve, right? Because see, there's always been censorship or regulation of some kind in our life, right? This is nothing new. I mean, this has been there in the 70s, it was there in the 80s, it was there in the 90s. It's always been there. TV does a form of self-regulation. Films have CBFC. Obviously, it's much harder to technically censor things on the internet, but by and large, there are. So I think what we try and follow as a studio is to try and follow 3 or 4 sort of important rules. One is that at the end of the day, we are, to use an old television trope, we are invited guests in people's homes, right? So there is a certain degree of sensitivity and dignity with which we should conduct ourselves. That's one. Two is that there will be all kinds of messages to be told, and I may be of a certain sort of leaning or thinking, and somebody else may be of another leaning or thinking. I don't think either of us is right or either of us is wrong. So there will obviously be different sort of points of view. And finally, it's about how you tell the story and how you sort of get all these different things across. So I don't know. We're doing a lot of shows. We are telling a lot of stories. These kind of incidents will happen. Once in a way. There will be a sort of wave a red rag to a bull, and stuff happens. But by and large, it's also about being the deft matador and not getting gored. So it's all about storytelling. And I think that also what we need to do, and I think this will help doing it, is to elevate the absolute quality of storytelling. That being able to get these messages across in a manner that is not just in your face and not provocative, not silly for the sake of being silly kind of thing. Like what they used to say in the old days, right? That the reason why there is so much sex in this movie is because the script demanded it. Remember that? That's how the film industry has to talk, right? The script demands it. So I think that's the thing, that it's got to be done in that manner.
No, but there have been movies where political messaging has been done without it being in your face.
Exactly. And nothing happens, and these things get done. We've done stuff like that. So many people have done that, and it always happens. If you remember, in the 70s, there was a movie called Andhi, and that movie, it had Sanjeev Kumar and Suchitra Sen, and it got banned. It got banned by VC Shukla at the time for being, it was very, very politically motivated and all of that. Then shortly after that, I think the emergency happened, and then I think post-emergency it released at the theater. I've seen the movie. I've seen it on Doordarshan 7-8 years later.
Samir, we all will. I am sure you don't have a choice. The industry will follow the laws of the land and work within the framework. But my question to you is, what is your personal view on regulation, especially when it comes to silly things like, any taking offense to anything?
But you know what? Honestly, everywhere in the world there is some kind of regulation. So even if you go to the US, there is regulation of some kind. I mean, they have some sort of acceptable. It's obviously a more mature democracy, and they have over the last 250 years of their democracy learned to laugh at themselves a lot more. We are in that sense, what 75 years, and sort of getting up from there. Indians are notoriously not people who are self-deprecating and who can laugh at themselves. Very easily offended, and it's just a cultural thing with us. And especially older people. Older people are very, very easily offended. So, but it's a thing. It's part. I mean, even if you look at us from the 70s to now, look at the amount of progress we've made in content and storytelling. In the 70s, when the hero and the heroine had to kiss, it used to cut to two flowers that would touch each other, right? We've moved along from there. We've moved along from very, very prosaic action to pretty dramatic action. Storylines, all of that kind of stuff. In the old days, there used to be always that revenge and murder stories. It's moved along. We've done it, and we've been doing intelligent stuff from then. In the 70s, the whole parallel cinema movement was, in a sense, things that were disruptive and disturbing, and trying to push you to see what social evils exist. So I don't think we've ever stopped. I don't think the creative business ever stops. I don't think regulation ever stops it. I think all it does is that it encourages you to do it better, to do it smarter, to do it again, at the risk of repeating the word, we have to elevate the quality of our storytelling.
Great. I mean, I think you said it all. So let me just switch gears and come back to Samir. So what do you do, Samir? How do you de-stress yourself? What do you do?
But I don't get stressed actually too much. So, but de-stress, I do different things. I go to the farm, so that's like a big deal for me. I read a lot. I watch a lot of television, a lot of series, movies, all of that kind of stuff. What else do I do? I play table tennis. Most recently, I've started doing that again. So I found a good partner in my neighbor. So we play quite a lot, but now he's shooting, so not available. Yeah, and then I work. Actually, I enjoy working. I enjoy doing what I'm doing, of telling stories and making plans of how to tell better, brighter stories. So I find that itself a big de-stressing thing for me, to tell a new story. So yeah, I mean, apart from that, go out and have a nice meal. Be generally grateful. It's good fun.
Be grateful. Be grateful. Very important.
Yeah.
And where do you see? I mean, if you have to stargaze, if you have to just say 2021, 22, where do you see? What do you see? What are the major changes that you see?
Well, I think while there is going to be a lot of change, I think it's going to be a lot of more of the same. In that sense, that, I mean, everyone is expecting that somehow in a post-pandemic period is going to be some bright new world, and I don't subscribe to that theory at all, because you can already see that we're still not out of the pandemic, and things have returned to normal in that sort of same cavalier way that we are so famous for. So I think some things will change. Obviously, there's been a lot of hardship in this period. A lot of businesses and companies and people have gone under. That's difficult. It's not easy at all. But that said, and all that said, I think the media business will sort of rebound in a manner. Many things have changed, yes. So like advertising revenues have got a hit. TV is going through a little bit of a phase in its life, but in the final analysis, there are consumers, there is content, and consumers are always going to need content. It'll be a question of moving from one screen to the other, or from one sort of outlet to another. And there's always a new generational change. It's like now there's this, in recent times, there's this big excitement about all the series have thrown up all these new stars, and so therefore does this mean the end of superstardom? I mean, that's very fanciful talk. There's nothing like that. It's always good content and bad content. It's really big star and small star. So I think a lot of it will stay the same. But the one important thing that will happen is that the streaming business and this whole internet connectivity and being online has been a game changer in 2020. And I think a lot of this habit will stay. Like, I don't think we'll do as much business travel, because we don't need to. We are already used to doing conversations like this. And I think these kind of things will stay. I think a lot more content consumption will happen in this manner. a lot of our work now gets done online, as in a lot of meetings, a lot of, narrations, discussions, all of that. So I think technology in the coming years is going to become more and more, well, invasive, if you wish, in our life, and in many, many millions of ways, millions of ways. I mean, we are at the tip of a technological revolution in our lives. And in the next 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to become incredible. So, yeah, I mean, we have to just be geared up for that.
Great. I mean, it was wonderful talking to you, Samir. I mean, very interesting, very inspiring journey from selling the yellow pages to heading one of India's largest television network to running joining a production company to now setting up probably India's first of its kind content studio, or whatever you want to call it. It's been a very inspiring journey, and I like watching, because I love animals. I keep stalking you every time you go to your farm with the cows and the dogs and things like that. So thank you very much, and it was wonderful, wonderful listening to you. And anything you would like to tell our viewers? Any message that you would like to convey?
No, not really. I mean, I think just as people, we are privileged, you and me, to be doing this show. Me to be able to come and talk to you about all of this. And I think a lot of us who are in this position of, having some degree of privilege, some degree of, peace and calm. I think the important thing is for us to try and, spread the good fortune in whatever way we can. So, I mean, there's no sort of fixed way of doing it, but in every little way, if we can sort of share the good fortune, it's a good thing to do. So I tell, I am always trying to tell everyone whom we speak to about that that there's a lot of angst and suffering out there. So whatever we can do to alleviate that would be a good thing to do, and to sort of look around, look beyond. We tend to live in our little echo chambers, whether right or left, but we are in our echo chamber, and it's important to sort of get out of that and see what's really going on, and and sort of get involved. I think that's the key thing, to get involved in a life beyond your own little life.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing that you said. Get out of your own well, get out of your own echo chamber, and see what's out there, and get involved. I mean, you can't be sitting and commenting as an armchair critic. You need to be get involved if you really want to bring in a change. Thank you, Samir, and to everybody who's watching this live chat, thank you for coming and watching, and please continue to follow. You can follow me at Raj Cheerful with a double L. So we are on YouTube and Facebook, and we are now also available. All episodes are available on MX Player. So if you go to MX Player, you can watch all the previous episodes in case you missed any. And thank you, Samir, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.